Hi class, how are you today? That's great. Oh, how am I? It varies. The learning target for today is to be able to calculate deviations from the mean and interpret what it means. Get it? Get it? Okay. So just to be able to calculate deviations from the mean and then take those numbers and figure out what it's talking about. Why those numbers are useful and what you can say about the graph. For 3, I can calculate deviations, or you can calculate deviations from the mean and interpret what it means. 2, you can calculate deviations from the mean, but that's it. You can't interpret anything about those numbers. 1, by looking at the graph, you can explain some things about its variation, about its variability. And 0, you don't know what variation is. Let's get started. Alright, to start off, let's do work with some vocab words first. So, deviation. Deviation is how far a data point is from the mean. So, if something deviates, it moves from the norm. So, like, a data point is away from the mean, and the deviation is how far away from the mean it is. So deviation away from the mean. The variability of data is how much data varies. What that means is all the data close together, or is all the data far apart? So if you've got a graph where a lot of the data is very far from the mean, then it has a high variability. If all the data is clumped together around the mean, then it has a low variability. So we have a dot plot here. And I've made this little table here, and we've got data points and deviation from the mean. So for each point, I want you to find how it deviates from the mean, how much it deviates from the mean. So that's pretty much how far it is from the mean. So before we do anything, we have to find out the mean. So if you count up all these x's, I counted 22 of them. So you add up all of these numbers. So 0 plus 3 plus 4 plus 4 plus 6 plus 6 plus 7 plus 7 plus 7 plus 8 6 times plus 9 4 times plus 10 3 times. And that should give you 158. And then you divide that by the number of numbers, 22. And that should equal about 7.18, rounded to the nearest hundredth. So now I want you to write each data point and then how it deviates from the mean. So for 0, it's negative 7.18 away from the mean, because it's 0 and the mean is 7.18. So it's 7.18 less than it, so we say the deviation of the mean is negative 7.18. Then the next data point is 3. And the deviation of that is negative 4.18. Then we have two 4s, so we put them each individually. And each one is negative 3.18 away from the mean. So I did the same thing with the 6s and the 7s. The 6s were negative 1.18 away. The 7s were negative 0.18 away. And I'm running out of room, so I'm going to add part down here. But now we're on the other side of the mean, so we're going to be in the positive range, starting with 8. So we have 1 8 up here, and then the rest of the 8s down here. And they're all 0.82 away. because they're 8, and 8 minus 7.18 is 0.82. Now we do it with the 9s and the 10s. The 9s had 1.82 away, there was 4 of them, and the 10s, which was 3 of them, had 2.82 away. So now we have our deviations from the mean. So what that shows is how far away from the mean each is. Even though we had most of the data points at 8, 7 was closer to the mean than 8. So this shows how much variation there is. So on the low end, there's a lot of variation, like negative 7.18 away from the mean. That's pretty far away. On the right end, not as far away, 2.82, but still a decent range. So this one has a decent amount of variability, and variability really matters when you're comparing graphs. So looking between two graphs. But with these data points over here, I would say it adds to the variability of the graph. And we'll be doing a bit more with these in a coming lesson about taking all these numbers and making a solid calculation of them. Now time for the sponge. So, for the sponge today, 5 people were asked approximately how many hours of TV they watched per week. Their responses are 6, 4, 6, 7, 8. For number 1, I want you to find the mean number of hours of TV watched for these people. Number 2, find the deviations from the mean for all 5 data values. So on the one I showed you, there were 22. This one, just 5. And number 3, write a new set of 5 values that has about the same mean, so roughly the same mean as the data set, but generally speaking, greater deviations from the mean. So write 5 numbers with the same mean, but that are essentially farther apart, greater deviations from the mean. Alright, that's it for this lesson. This sponge activity I don't have somewhere else because it's all right here. So don't have to write down all the words. You can just say 1, 2, 3 and show your work and write your answers. But that's it. Once again, please make sure to take notes on the entire lesson. Make sure to attempt the sponge, take a picture of your notes, submit them all to eBackpack, and have a good night.